Hi, friends. Welcome to Fostering Kingdoms, where faith sits at the heart of fostering and we build kingdom led homes in the middle of real life. I'm Jess. I am a wife, a mother, a veteran, and a foster carer, and I'm here walking this journey with you. So let's dive in. In the last episode, we talked about boundaries. We talked about emotional boundaries, physical boundaries in the home, but also our spiritual boundaries and our walk with God and how they protect the calling that God has placed over our lives, especially as foster carers. Today, I want to take that conversation just one step further. We're going to take it out of the heart and into the home because boundaries don't just live in our minds or our schedules, they also live in our spaces. So, today's episode, we're going to be talking about decluttering, creating calm environments, and why clean, ordered spaces, why they matter so deeply, and especially why they matter when we are foster carers. Now, we're going to be looking at this episode not from a place of perfection, but from a place of stewardship, safety, care. When we realize that our homes hold so much emotional weight, that our homes, they're not just neutral spaces, they hold energy and emotion, memory, safety, or lack of safety. For children who have experienced trauma, chaos, instability, their environment matters more often than we actually realize. A cluttered, overstimulating space can actually feel unsafe. Even if it looks normal and safe to us, it can be so triggering to the children that we look after. A calm, predictable space, it actually communicates something powerful without the need for words, without the need for explanation. When we can create an environment that holds that level of safety, it says unconsciously to the child, you are safe here. Nothing is about to fall apart. You belong here. When we realize that our boundaries, they don't just stop at behaviors, whether that's our behaviors or the children that we look after. When we understand that the boundaries, they're often unsaid words. Now, when we think of boundaries, it can often feel like saying no, or it can be limiting access, being allowed to go out, having extra TV time or access to their iPads or phones or whatever it may be. Boundaries can feel like just trying to protect our own energy in a difficult situation. But boundaries, they can also look like what we actually allow into our home, what we keep just in case, and what we actually tolerate because we're too tired to even deal with it in the first place. Recognizing that our clutter isn't just physical, it's actually emotional residue that we're just scattering all over the place. And when we don't create boundaries around our belongings, they start to quietly drain us. So clutter usually feels a lot heavier in foster homes, usually because there's a lot more things. We end up with extra clothes, we may end up with donations, paperwork, bags, toys, belongings from multiple different lives that have been lived. And because everything feels important, it can feel wrong to let anything go. But here's the truth. Holding on to everything, it doesn't equal honor, it doesn't equal respect, and sometimes it just equals overwhelm. Children from trauma, they don't need more things. They need clear space. They need space to breathe, space to regulate, space to rest. They need adults around them to actually be adults and show them what it takes to grow into those roles. And I've actually wrote about this in my book. There is a whole chapter in Building Your Success as an Everyday Woman. There's a whole chapter on decluttering. So feel free to check out the link below, get yourself a copy, and dive deeper into that chapter. It doesn't just affect us, it affects everybody in the home. So I just want to share a little snippet from the book. Having lots of possessions adds to your mental bandwidth. And when you're already juggling so much, it becomes really overwhelming. And overwhelm, well, that leads to procrastination. And procrastination leads to just getting nothing done. Decluttering doesn't just free up space in our homes, it frees up space in our minds and our souls too. Ultimately, it brings a whole new level of peace. We're creating a new standard, not a standard of perfection. We're not talking on this episode about living a minimalist life. We're not here to create Instagram perfect homes. We're not here to have Pinterest level organization. But it is about setting that new standard for you, your home, your future. It's about creating a standard that says we value calm here. We care about what we have. Our environment supports. Having a tidy home, it isn't about control. It's about creating intentional care. It's about creating stewardship over our stuff. And scripture talks a lot about stewardship. It's not just talking about money, but it talks about everything that we have been entrusted with. And our homes, they are a big part of that. Luke 16:10, I will come back to this time and time again because it is so relevant to so many areas of our life. Luke 16:10 says, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. So if we look at our homes and stewardship with different questions rather than just guilt and shame, and we come at the question saying, well, do we actually use this item? Does this item serve our home now? Does this item bring calm or chaos? Is it clutter, or do we actually have a need for this item? Just understanding that letting go, it's not wasteful when it actually creates space. It's more of a burden when you're holding on to things that do not serve you or the people in your home. So decluttering as a boundary, it says this is enough. We don't need excess to feel secure. Our home will support us and not drain us. And boundaries around space actually help children to learn that their home is a predictable space. They know what to expect. It allows them to have a level of responsibility in order to keep spaces clean and tidy. It allows them to learn how to respect not only their belongings, but other people's belongings too. It also teaches them self-respect and self-worth. These are life skills, not just aesthetic preferences. Having lots of possessions, they just add to your mental bandwidth. As foster carers, we are juggling so much and it can be so overwhelming. So allow yourself time to let things go. So what does that look like in a practical and realistic step for our foster homes? So let's keep this grounded and doable. We're not talking about doing everything at once. We're not talking about perfection. We're just talking about creating intention and how to actually start. So here's a few gentle starting points that you can begin with. Just clear one surface. Maybe it's the drawer, the dreaded drawer. Everybody has that drawer, the junk drawer. Start there, or start with something that you can see. Maybe the kitchen side, there may be a table, maybe in the hallway. Just start with one area. Maybe you can create a calm zone, maybe in somebody's bedroom, yours. You may have an area where you can create a reading corner or a snuggle corner that just feels calm. You can limit overstimulation in shared spaces. You can look at rotating toys instead of having access to everything all the time, or having toys just out on display. Put them away in boxes. Have a clear space for bags, coats, hats, gloves, scarves. When we create this small space, it actually says to the children, this is where you belong. And it allows their nervous system to feel safe. They know that they have a space where their belongings belong. Ultimately, they belong in that home. So these small shifts, they actually change the emotional tone of the home. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs when it comes to decluttering. And we all know that letting go quite often can feel hard. It can feel hard for us and it can feel hard for the children that we've looked after. And sometimes recognizing that the clutter, it's not just about mess. It's about the memories that have been created. But when we're holding on to past memories that no longer serve us, they just represent to our mind survival, provision, fear of never having enough again. Sometimes letting go can feel risky, but creating order in the home, it doesn't erase the history. We allow it to honor the present and to create new memories. You're allowed to create a home that feels lighter than what you've come from. And for me personally, I grew up in a B&B where there was always stuff everywhere. And more often than not, it wasn't mine or my family's. It would be suitcases from guests coming and going, coats hung up on the coat stand that I didn't know who they belonged to, nor where they'd come from. But in the past few days, I've been helping my mum to clear out her home. And honestly, my mum's home has always felt really cluttered and messy for me. My nervous system was never calm and safe in that environment. It was always hyper vigilant. Where's this come from? Whose is this? What's going on? I was always in a place of not truly belonging. So I understand what these children feel like when there isn't somewhere for them to hang up their coats because other people's coats are in the way. But for the past couple of days anyway, I've been going on this journey with her of decluttering as she's no longer a B&B and she too fosters. So what's going on this journey with her, I've emptying cupboards. I just saw a bunch of postponed decisions, a whole bunch of scarcity thinking. The back lounge that used to be our lounge that we would sit in, we weren't allowed in the guest lounge. So back in her smaller lounge that we had, as we were opening boxes and opening cupboards and moving things around, honestly, that old lounge, it just showed the old version of herself. An outdated identity, an environment built around fear and uncertainty. She created an environment that was led by fear. Fear of letting go, for asking for more, a version of herself that just held on to so much emotion. It just overflowed into the room. It just added so much extra pressure to an already heavy situation of decluttering the room, getting it ready to turn it into a makeshift kitchen while we actually ripped out her entire kitchen. The lounge, it still carried years worth of pain. It carried the old belongings. There was a broken mug that had once belonged to my dad. And it's been almost 20 years since their divorce. And when we were going through the stuff, the room still carried the pain. You could still feel it in the atmosphere. The past arguments, they still whispered in that silent room. So in the decluttering, we let it all go. We allowed space for more, for the next chapter, and for her healing to actually be allowed to happen. For her nervous system to slip into the safety of the new environment. It was the same room, but now it was filled with new possibilities. I saw the weight literally lift off her shoulders as we removed bags and bags of rubbish from her home, things that no longer served her. We allowed her to create a home that heals. And I invite you to do the same, to create that calm environment, to create a home that heals. And no, a calm environment doesn't fix the trauma, but it supports the healing. It reduces the overstimulation, the emotional dysregulation, the anxiety, the heaviness that so many people carry. And when we can create that calm environment, it actually increases safety, predictability, rest. Our mind knows that it's calm and safe in that space. And it doesn't matter more about what your house looks like. It doesn't matter about the colour of the sofa or the rug on the floor, but it's the way that the home lets you feel like it's home. How you can create the warmth, the safety, the comfort, all of the feelings that we so desperately search for. So as you move forward from this episode, I hope you see decluttering not just as another task, not as another thing to add to your to-do list, but as a form of self-care for yourself, for your family, and also for the children that God has entrusted to you. Your home doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to feel peaceful enough. This is the part of your story that quietly says, I am ready for what's next. So thank you for being here with me on Fostering Kingdoms. I'm Jess, and I'll catch you on the next episode.